Servus Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. Now the official results from Saxony and Thuringia are in and nothing much has changed. Sure, there was some tinkering from the side of the regime with a so-called computer glitch, which cost the CDU and the AfD each one seat in parliament in Saxony that went to the SPD and the Green Party. However, that is not that important. It might cost them their blocking majority, but there is actually one guy from the Free Voters that won his district directly, and he might decide not to take up his seat in parliament as his party could not manage to score more than the required 5% to be a full faction, or he might just vote together with the AfD, or he might even join the AfD. He's very close to them. So in that case, the AfD would have effectively 41 seats again and a blocking majority in Saxony. Let's see. But more importantly, I want to present to you today some insights that was extracted from voter data and surveys. We see, for example, the typical parameters like how men and women voted, how the different age groups voted, occupational groups, how people from different educational backgrounds cast their votes, and so on. I think some of the things we see are, of course, similar to that we've seen before. That is a general property of the AfD, and some things are really new. Maybe not a surprise after all we have heard about Thuringia, but it is uncommon. And that is that the AfD scored really, really well with young people. And that makes it not only the party of workers, but also the party of the youth, at least in central Germany as of now. That is, of course, a big white pill, and it means if that stays like that, then time would play on the side of the AfD, at least in that regard. And maybe I say a little more about that, a few words towards the end of the presentation. But let's look at the data right now. So normally, of course, leftist parties and especially the Green Party are really popular among younger people. But here you see that the AfD scores really well, up from 18 till 59 years old. And with the people above 60, well, it's really old people who probably vote for established parties out of a habit a little more. You see the Green Party also doesn't score high with the old people, but it is the commies and the CDU party that scores really high there. AfD does really well among young people and the Green Party not so much, even though relatively the Green Party still scores better with younger voters than with older ones, also in Thuringia, of course. And as I said before, this is not normally the case. Normally the AfD scores really high with people between 30 and 55, so the people who are really at the peak of their career, who have high working hours and who really bear the brunt of the workload in Germany. So the plow horses, the laborers, and that is really like people who are students or young or who just started their careers, and also old people. They normally don't vote AfD, but here in Thüringen you can see that even young people vote for them, and that is great. Okay, let's look at educational background next. So this is more like the usual picture. It means that the more indoctrinated you are by the education system, and especially by the universities, the higher the likelihood that you are a leftist and that you won't cast your vote for the AfD, for a patriotic party, because success in the education system also means that you get brainwashed or that you are easily brainwashed. That is not true for everyone, but when we look at large numbers of people, that is the effect that we see. It's true for most of the people. So, and after education, people then normally go take a job. And this is the distribution of the different parties depending on the occupation. So on the left, you see workers, then employees, and then public servants or public officers, actually, people who are officers of the state. And on the right, you see self-employed people. So here you can really see the people who work the hardest, I would say, self-employed people and workers, they prefer the AfD. And if you're an officer of the state, if you are a regime agent, basically, then you even they voted for the AfD by over 20%, I have to say. Imagine that, yeah. That is pretty cool, huh? Over 20% of state officers even did that, but relatively you see a dip there, of course. So let's turn to men and women. Of course, we all know that men are super based and right-wing, and women are the eternal leftist, or at least the supporter of the eternal leftist. Well, here you see something similar, but not quite. Maybe it is a transition stage that we can observe here. Women in Thuringia still choose the AfD more frequently than any other party. However, compared to the men, you see that there is a huge difference. If it was only up to men to vote, the AfD would have had almost 40% of the votes. But as we know, in former times, when conservatism or patriotism was more mainstream, women actually voted more conservative than men. And that has changed now. That is easily explainable. Women just, they look what the majority does. They look for social proof. They look what's generally accepted, and then they do that. And women don't change the political system. They just amplify the status quo. But when it shifts, the women also shift. And I think this is what we're seeing here in Thuringia. Not in all of Germany, of course, not even on the average in Germany, but here in Thuringia we can clearly see that women still differ from men, but they're on the way. So that means being patriotic, being right-wing, becomes more socially accepted, and people notice that people around them are openly patriotic or right-wing. They're not hiding it anymore. You know it, and that creates social proof if these people are not antisocial but are actually okay people. And then even women flip and vote for patriotic parties. So when you normalize that, even women will vote for patriots. So next I want to look at the shift of votes or electoral shift, because we know there is a new party, the BSW, Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht, and let's see how this new party profited from the other parties, because they couldn't lose votes. It was the first time that they were up for election, and here we can clearly see that they basically just sucked up all the votes, or most of them, from Die Linke, so the renamed SED, Socialist Unity Party of Germany, from the GDR, the DDR. They took over a bunch of their votes, and here and there from the other parties. They also took some votes, also from the AfD. But you can see, for example, that the BSW cost the SPD almost as many votes as the AfD. So the grand plan of the regime to take away votes from the AfD, well, it worked. But at the same time, they took so many votes from all the other parties. I think that is questionable. And we don't know if this party will make it in the end, or if they won't be around in 5 years anymore. Alright, so let's look at the AfD. The AfD gained from a lot of other parties, the FDP, the Social Democrats, Die Linke even, CDU, and they mobilized a lot of non-voters, which is very good. And the 13,000 votes that they lost to the BSW, we already saw in the other chart. So we have a new player now, and that is also reflected here in a state, Thüringen, that was dominated by the established parties throughout the 90s after reunification, and then the early 2000s. And then around 2015, I wonder what happened, why the AfD is rising so much in the votes. I really don't know. And now you see the BSW caused that huge downward movement in the votes of Die Linke, which I said, they basically just replaced them. Just think of the commies now as the BSW, and they are the same crew almost, or a fraction of them, and they took over half of their voters. So now let's go to the survey part. People were asked what is their biggest motivator or their biggest concern for choosing what party to vote for. And you see the difference between the last election in 2019 and now in 2024 for Saxony and Thuringia. And it is, the grouping is a little different, or the order, but basically it's social security, immigration and crime and security, or let's say public safety. And especially in the aftermath of these gruesome attacks that we've seen in recent weeks, all the establishment parties, they try to downplay it and to sweep it under the rug. And that doesn't sit so well with people who are concerned for their child's safety. But what I find really interesting, especially in the context of the AfD, is the AfD was always called a protest party. That means the establishment and the media tried to tell us that the voters are not really convinced of what the AfD says. They don't even know the program, and if they knew the program, they wouldn't vote for them. They're just protest voters. They're just angry people who don't have any joy in life, and they are feeling like they're left on the wayside, and other people have so much more success, and they just want to give the middle finger to the establishment. They have a chip on their shoulder, basically. Losers, right? And this is what you call then protest voters or something. People who are not really convinced of the party that they're voting. They just want to express their anger at the ruling coalition or the ruling parties. Well, and that you see in this lighter blue or gray blue colored bar here from 2019. So not so many people said that they're convinced of the AfD really, and many people just said, or considerably more, or twice as much in Thuringia even, that they're just disappointed of the other parties, and that's why they're voting for this new party, a relatively new party, the AfD. But now look at 2024. Now 51% of the voters of the AfD said that they are convinced of the program, of the message of the party, that it was a conscious decision, a deliberate decision to vote for this party, and not so much, or to a smaller degree, that they are dissatisfied with the performance of the current ruling parties. And you see a similar behavior for both states here. So that means the AfD really changed from a party that attracts protest voters to a party that has a core following, a very convinced, informed, and maybe the future will show, but maybe loyal following, just like these 70, 80-year-old senior citizens that still vote SPD or CDU, even though they don't know since the last 20 years what these two parties are actually up to. And if you would have a conversation with them about it, they wouldn't approve of it. But it's habit. Maybe this habit forms with the AfD now. But I would say the AfD didn't morph into that. The voters changed. I think the voters had different experiences in the last 5 years in this case, and the voters really changed. Maybe they still vote for the AfD, but now for different reasons. Now they're fully convinced of their decision, which is also a good sign. All right, let me know in the comments down below what you think about that, and how you experience this if you're in Germany or if you're abroad. Maybe you read something in the news about that, what happened here in Germany. I've seen that it made some international headlines, but I also want to thank my supporters, my subscribers, and you for watching this video. If you want to, you can support me via Patreon or Subscribestar, and also check me out on other social media outlets. Enjoy the rest of your day. Servus, Kameraden.